Steel City Sports back here today. I wanted to talk about last night's game between the Ravens and the Niners. And I also want to touch on the MVP conversation because this is now dramatically shifted. So let's just quickly talk about the game last night. I think it was a massive statement performance by the Baltimore Ravens. If you were to ask me what is the most physical team in the NFL, I would tell you the San Francisco 49ers. And the Ravens went to San Francisco, and I think that they played more physical than the the Niners. And I think that they just kind of beat them up, which is ironic because that's what the Niners are known for. They're known for being the hard hitters, the very physical type team. Well, the Ravens played that exact style of football against the Niners, and they crushed them. And I think that this game highlights the difference between a good quarterback and a great quarterback. And it's now why Brock... it's so fascinating that now, I don't know if this has ever happened in the NFL where one game flips the MVP from the guy on the team that lost to the guy on the team that won. I think that's such a cool thing that happened. And like I said, this highlighted the difference between a good and a great quarterback because the Ravens and the Niners, they both have great defenses. You saw what Lamar did against the Niners defense. He was basically perfect, other than that mess that happened where he tripped over the ref in the end zone, but you obviously can't blame Lamar for what happened there. And I think we are really now witnessing the best version, the most complete version of Lamar Jackson. And I even said earlier in this year that I felt Lamar was playing better this season than he was in his MVP season. Now it's looking like he's probably going to win another MVP this year. Just looks like he's grown more into a complete all-around player. And I think a big part of that, obviously, is upgrading his receiver core. You know, it's always been discussed that Lamar always kind of had a lackluster receiver core. Well, now you get him one with Zay Flowers, who is a home run hit, and OBJ, who provides some stability. He's looked really good this year. As for Brock Purdy, we know what Brock Purdy is. He's a better version of Jimmy Garoppolo, and that's why I was kind of pushing back on him to win MVP. This has been a very, very strange year for the MVP award because there hasn't been like that one big standout guy. You know, like last year Mahomes was statistically incredible. He had over 5,000 passing yards. And usually MVPs put up like 40-plus touchdowns. You know, think of Aaron Rodgers back-to-back years. Think of Mahomes. And so now, the front runner right now, Lamar Jackson, has a total of 24 touchdowns. And that includes 19 passing touchdowns and 5 rushing touchdowns. For an MVP, that's very minuscule, you know? You would look at those numbers and think, that's not MVP numbers. Well, I don't know. Like I said, it's just been a very strange year this year. And I don't think you've had one big standout guy dominate in the stats. That's why Lamar is leading, because he's on the 1 seed. The Ravens are really, really good. And let me just really quickly read you Lamar Jackson's total stats. Because like I said, they don't look like MVP level stats. 3,357 passing yards. 19-7 touchdown interception ratio, and then like we said, 5 rushing touchdowns with 786 rushing yards. So that looks like a really good season. MVP level season though. In years prior, it would have looked weird, but this year I think it actually makes sense to give it to Lamar. I think he is a much better player than some of the other guys you were seeing in the conversation, like a Dak. You know, I've talked about Dak countless times on this channel and how laughable his MVP case was. Purdy, I think, basically played himself out of the conversation last night. And McCaffrey, I would be fine with giving it to McCaffrey, but they're not going to do that because it's a quarterback award. We've talked, again, that's another big topic we've discussed a lot on this channel. So given the criteria of what the MVP typically is in the NFL, it makes a lot of sense for Lamar Jackson to do it. He's on a 1 seed. He's playing probably the best football of his career. And they're probably gonna be one of the favorites, if not the favorite, to win the Super Bowl whenever the playoffs start. So I just wanted to quickly also look at the Ravens' remaining schedule because they're 12-3 at the current moment, and they have 2 games left. And they only have a 1-game lead on Miami. I find that fascinating. It's just crazy how that played out. That next week against Miami is going to be a massive game for the Baltimore Ravens because they're essentially playing for the 1 seed. Whoever wins that game is probably going to have the 1 seed because we're at the end of the year here. They're only 1 game apart, so if Baltimore wins, I think they're pretty comfortably the 1 seed. If Miami wins, I'm pretty sure they would take the 1 seed because they would be tied in record with Baltimore, but they'd obviously have the tiebreaker over them. And then Week 17, the Ravens, they play my Steelers. I don't have much confidence in the Steelers winning that game just for a multitude of reasons. I could probably ramble about it for a half an hour, knowing me and knowing how I can get kind of a little passionate, if you'd say, about the Steelers. But just given how good Baltimore's defense is and the instability we have at the quarterback position, I know Rudolph just went off, but the Bengals, go look it up. Their defense has actually been really bad this year. So I think the Ravens, they're going to beat the Steelers. They're probably going to beat the Dolphins because both those games are at home. So you'd be looking at a team that would be the 1 seed. So it would make a lot of sense to give Lamar Jackson the MVP this year. And so, yeah, that pretty much wraps up everything I wanted to talk about. Let me know all your thoughts on all this. Do you think Lamar Jackson should be the MVP this year? And what's just your overall take on the Ravens and what this means for the Niners going forward? Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe.